President Trump in the news again. This time he's talking about y'all favorite girl, Nancy Pelosi. President Trump has publicly accused former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi of insider trading, alleging she profited from non public information with her husband, Paul Pelosi. Trump also suggested that she be called for an investigation and prosecution. So we'll see if something happens. But it's interesting when retail investors hear this, like myself and the community, right, of retail investors. It amuses us because we've known this for years. And it's wonderful, actually, to see politicians get called out on it because Nancy Pelosi has enriched herself with insider information. Obviously, if she, what, she's worth combined total with her husband, they say the number is over $500 million. And she has roughly a $200,000 salary or maybe below. But let's jump right into it, man. Retail investors already know this. Nancy Pelosi is a. Oh,
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Hawley introduced legislation that would ban members of Congress from owning or trading individual stocks. It extends to the president and the vice president. Are you in favor of that legislation?
Well, I like it conceptually. I don't know about it, but I like it conceptually. And, you know, Nancy Pelosi became rich by having inside information. She made a fortune with her husband, and I think that's disgraceful. So in that sense, I'd like it, but I'd have to really see I study these things very carefully, and this just happened. So I'll take a look at it. But conceptually, I like it. And what I do think is Nancy Pelosi should be investigated because she has the highest return of anybody practically in the history of Wall Street, save a few. How did that happen? It happened by she knows exactly what's going to happen, what's going to be announced. She buys stock, and then the stock goes up after the announcement's made. And she ought to be investigated.
she ought to be investigated. So President Trump is putting the pressure on her, right? He is putting that heat on her. Nancy Pelosi responded. She she didn't want to respond, but she responded to Jake Tapper. If you take a look here, I'll play this in a second, but former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi appeared agitated Wednesday when CNN's Jake Tapper confronted her about insider trading allegations. On the lead, Tapper tried to show President Trump's comments earlier that day, accusing Pelosi of becoming rich by having inside information in stock trading. When he attempted to read Trump's comments after a technical error, she quickly shut him down. Why do you have to read that? Pelosi erupted. We're here to talk about the 60th anniversary of Medicaid. That's what I agreed to come talk and what that means in the election. So let's take a look, man, at Jake Tapper, man. He was putting the screws. He was putting the screws on Nancy Pelosi.
This afternoon, President Trump mentioned you, and he made an allegation about your investments. I want to roll that clip and then give you a chance to respond.
Yeah.
Seem to be having some sort of
investments.
let me just read what he said. I'm sorry that we had some sort of technical issue. Nancy Pelosi became rich.
Why do you have to read that? We're here to talk about the 60th anniversary of Medicaid. That's what I agreed to come to talk about.
But I wanted
what that means in the election.
I wanted to give you a chance just to respond. He accused you of insider trading. What's your response to that?
Got her.
That's ridiculous. In fact, I very much support the trading of members of Congress. Not that I think anybody's doing anything wrong. If they are prosecuted and they go to jail. But because of the confidence it instills in the American people, don't worry about this. But I have no concern about the obvious investments that had been made over time. I'm not into it. My husband is, but it isn't anything to do with anything insider. But the president has his own exposure, so he's always projecting. He's always projecting. And let's not give him any more time on that, please. We're going forward here, and I'm very proud of my.
I think that's hilarious, man, that she just looked shook. She was fumbling. You could tell that she was not comfortable in answering that question. Kudos to Jake Tapper, man. He put her on the spot, man. He put the screws to her. He's just like, what do you think about that? He was just like, he got it out there. He didn't allow her room to wiggle out of it, and he put her on the spot. And just like a career politician that she is, she's just going to sit up there and lie. She's going to lie and make it seem as if no, there's no, I don't do that. Whatever. Man, look, you and your husband have a net worth of over $500 million from the information that I saw, and you have a 200 some odd $1,000 salary, I believe, just slightly below that. And you've been able to accumulate a $500 million in net worth between you and your husband. No one's buying it. And now you wanted to go ahead and hurry this along, rush him along so you can go talk about Medicaid. Take a look at Jake Tapper's face, man. He's like, look, I know I told you Medicaid to get you here, but I really wanted to talk about these allegations in insider trading. Take a look.
Family, and while he might make fun of us, while somebody inspired by him breaks into our home and hits my husband in a deadly fashion, hits my husband over the head, and he thinks that's a riot, I'd rather not go into some of my other complaints.
That's funny that she even brings up her husband being attacked because there's a lot of rumors and speculation and people coming up with different scenarios on why this man was in their home. And I guess he didn't have no clothes on. Who knows? They're saying some stuff about Mr.
About
Pelosi.
him right now, rather to talk about the 60th anniversary of Medicaid and Medicare. What a triumph, a great pillar,
Change the
a
subject.
great pillar of economic and health security for the American people. We had over the weekend a Caring Across Generations initiative of a 60-hour vigil of all of us taking turns, myself, my daughter, my granddaughter, and all the rest.
Jake Tapper got that. Bish, bish, please. I don't believe a word you saying, man. We ain't here to talk about Medicaid. At least that's not what Jake want to talk about the allegations, man. Look at the face, man. Nancy Pelosi is more than happy to change the subject. Look at her face. We all know this, man. If you're a retail investor like we are, we have a community, man. We have a community over on X, right? And we are on the front line fighting. Not only are we investors, we support the companies that we invest in, and we call out these politicians, and we call out hedge funds, and we call out the SEC for not doing anything about it. You have politicians like this that front run stocks, man, and they have accumulated a lot of wealth, and they have the nerve to sit here and smile in our faces. The people that voted for her all these decades, how did y'all vote for this? This lady is a liar. She is a liar, man. And she's used her position to enrich herself, man. You want to talk about an abuse of power, conflict of interest? We have people that are in charge of legislation, and these are the people that have this are privy to insider information, and they're allowed to trade stocks just like the rest of us, man. And you're trying to tell me that this is okay? And then you have the Securities Exchange Commission, the SEC, that's supposed to monitor this and protect retail investors and protect the integrity of the market, and they do nothing. They do nothing to politicians. They do nothing to hedge funds and banks. Ridiculous. Look at Jake Tapper.
Taking turns
I
over
digress.
60 hours
This lady
to
makes me
tell
sick, man.
stories of
You make me sick, Nancy. Look at her, Nancy, lying ass Pelosi.
how all of this, what all this
Ridiculous.
means in people's lives. We, just since all this has emerged, have had 300,000 calls from our Californians, two people in Republican-held districts, for them to call the constituents to call
Jake Tapper don't give a damn.
their Republican members of Congress who have voted for this shameful.
Jake Tapper got that look on his face. This Bersh didn't even answer my question. Well, Bersh.
Dirty, filthy, stinking, lousy, rotten, anything but beautiful act. And now we're
Oh,
engaged
Lord.
in the Save Medicaid summer. So today is
Unbelievable,
the
this lady.
60th anniversary. It's something to be very, very proud of. And instead of what the Republicans are doing to deprive people of access to health care who need it so badly, people with disabilities who need it
Yeah.
so badly, for the children
Let me ask
who
you,
need it so badly.
polling over the
Listen to
weekend
this.
from the Wall Street Journal showed a Democratic approval rating for the party as a whole at an all-time low, with only 33% of voters having a favorable impression of.
Look at this. 63% for the Democratic Party, unfavorable, 33% favorable. And I know there's different polling, and I saw another polling, and I forget the criteria of the polling, but basically it was saying that the Democrats were at a 19% approval rating, which is crazy, right? And the reason being, if you take a look at Nancy Pelosi, take a look at this lady. This right here is the face of a lion ass. Jake Tapper has a face of, I know you a lion ass, but I gotta interview you anyway. That's the face of a lion ass. Nancy Pelosi, she a lion ass. And I don't know how people who have voted for her, her constituents who have voted for her, man, you guys must be dumb. I'm sorry, dude. This lady just reeks of lion ass and enriching herself and trying to act like, no, no, my information, the information that I'm privy to, and determining how the United States are going to move forward with different companies, which could either help the company's stock or price or hurt it. I'm not going to give any of that information to my husband. He's just that good. He's just that good at investing in the stock market, and so am I. Isn't that crazy? So let's take a look at so the bill that they recently passed to for members of Congress to invest in the stock market. Okay, so now she's for it, right? She's for banning members investing in the stock market. But this is her back in the 2020, 2021. Listen to Nancy Lioness
House
Pelosi.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi says no to banning congressional lawmakers from trading stock. It was in response to a question about a report that found dozens of members of Congress violated a law meant to stop insider trading and prevent conflicts of interest. Here's what Pelosi said.
Because this is a free market and people, we're a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that.
They should be able to participate in that. Lawmakers, man. Lawmakers, man, that deal directly with legislation, right? That can have an adverse effect or a positive effect on companies. So of course, if you know this is coming down the way, why wouldn't you invest in these companies or, you know, pull your money out of companies if you see that something that you're invested in, that there's going to be some type of adverse effect against them because of your legislation? Why wouldn't you pull your money out or invest money? It's ridiculous what these people get away with. And we as retail investors, we know this all too well. We watch stocks get manipulated so bad, and the people that are supposed to regulate and are supposed to protect retail investors and protect the integrity of the market, these are the biggest criminals. Our politicians, our people in Congress that front run stocks, and the Securities Exchange Commission, which is a government agency, which is crazy. Let's go to Caroline Levitt, man. Caroline Levitt has a few choice words for Nancy Lioness Pelosi.
We were reporting that the president wants to meet David Solomon of Goldman Sachs today. Can you say what they'll discuss, if anything, in that meeting?
I won't discuss the president's private meetings from this podium, and it hasn't taken place yet unless he gives me liberty to do so.
And finally, have you talked with the president about his position on the stock trading ban bill before Congress? He obviously had pretty loaded comments about Senator Hawley. There's some reporting that they've since spoken. What is his position on the current status of that bill?
The president has spoken to Senator Hawley, who called him, and the president took that call. As the president said in the Roosevelt Room yesterday, conceptually, he of course supports the idea of ensuring that members of Congress and United States senators who are here for public service cannot enrich themselves. And the reason that this idea to put a ban on stock trading for members of Congress is even a thing is because of Nancy Pelosi. I mean, she is rightfully criticized because she makes, I think, $174,000 a year, yet she has a net worth of approximately $413 million. In 2024, Nancy Pelosi's stock portfolio, this was a fascinating statistic to me, grew 70% in 1 year in 2024, and her portfolio outperformed every single large hedge fund in that same year and even more than doubled the returns of Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. So I think the president stands with the American people on this. He doesn't want to see people like Nancy Pelosi enriching themselves off of public service and ripping off their constituents in the process. As for the mechanics of the legislation and how it will move forward, the White House continues to be in discussions with our friends on Capitol Hill.
So let me get this right. Nancy Pelosi outperformed hedge funds, who are the biggest cheaters. Not all of them, but retail investors, if you know, you know, they're the biggest cheaters. How in the world is that possible unless you a damn cheater your damn self? She even beat Warren Buffett. To a lot of people, they consider him the greatest. They consider him the GOAT in terms of investing in the stock market. Warren Buffett, man. You know, Warren Buffett is synonymous with success in the stock market, right? Nancy Pelosi is synonymous with lying ass criminal. Crazy, man. Caroline Levitt, look at her, man. And she dropped that ether. I respect Caroline Levitt, man. She dropped that ether. So let's go to this next video. This next video is what um, foreign news media they look at the well, at least this particular news outlet looks at the Dems as a joke, and they have uh, they have a few choice words for y'all girl, Nancy Lioness Pelosi.
Nancy Pelosi looked like she was panicking a bit during that interview with Jake Tapper when she was asked about
Facts.
insider trading. Now, we know that there's been a lot of speculation for some time about how someone on 200 grand a year is worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and her husband is just very good on the stock market. I want to
Must
get
be.
your thoughts. What do you make of Nancy Pelosi now supporting the stock trading ban, and also the president today calling for her to be investigated?
Yeah, the stock trading ban is interesting because Nancy Pelosi is one of the reasons that the original Stock Act of 2012 ended up getting passed. Now, that was bipartisan at the time. There were Republicans and Democrats, but Pelosi was the most prominent Democrat. Peter Schweizer's reporting at the time had revealed just how much trading her husband was doing and how obviously it conflicted with her business in the US Congress. But the Stock Act is not something, I mean, one of the reasons this is still such an issue for so many people is that the Stock Act is not, it doesn't have a lot of teeth. And so you need something else that's basically just a full ban. Otherwise, there's a million ways to get around it. And Nancy Pelosi is now at the end of her career. There's a populist wave here in the United States. I think she sees the writing on the wall. But I mean, come on, like this is where Paul Pelosi has made so much of their family fortune over the last
Facts.
several decades. You know, if this had happened several decades ago, the Pelosi's would be a lot less rich.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, it's interesting looking at the Democrats. The party's approval rating is at a record low, but Rolling Stone magazine published polling this week that found that voters see Democrats as more corrupt than Republicans. This is a Liberal poll, Impact Research, that also found that voters deemed it very important, 53% classifying it as a very big priority. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that people are seeing the Democrats as more corrupt?
Here in Washington, D.C., that survey, if you mentioned it at an event or a pub, people would absolutely have their jaws on the floor because
Right.
Washington doesn't realize this is how the country sees the Democratic Party. They think that Trump has been such a political gift with all of the baggage that comes with this guy being a businessman who's had deals in Russia and the Middle East and all of that. They don't realize that Trump has actually pretty successfully called voters' attention to what Democrats have been doing with less media coverage for years and years in the shadow of the press kind of muckraking on Democrats. And so I think it's actually very interesting, especially now after the myriad news cycles on Elon Musk and Doge, that this poll is still finding that this is a bigger problem for Democrats who really thought that they had a slam dunk with Musk and Doge in terms of overcoming Republicans on metrics exactly like these. So they have a lot of soul searching to do. And honestly, here in Washington, my view is that they are not doing it and they don't even understand what to do at this point.
They don't even understand what to do at this point, and the reason why Democrats are looked at by the majority of people as crooks, they're looked at as being dishonest, disingenuous, is because of people like Nancy Pelosi. She's the perfect example. People know. They look at this lady and they're like, you know something, this lady got to be corrupt as hell. And she lies so much. She lies so much. And she has no problem in doing it because she is a career politician. I thought it was interesting that President Trump said he had put a post on X and it said no kings, right? You know how they kind of pushed that narrative before? And you take a look at all of the people who've been in politics, they've been in politics for decades, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. It's incredible when they talk about no kings. Well, there needs to be term limits. And these people, they have lived off of the hard work and sweat and the backs of American citizens for way too long. But let's get back to negative side of insider trading by politicians like Nancy Pelosi. Insider trading by politicians such as Nancy Pelosi carries significant negative consequences, allegedly, Consequences for markets, public trust, and economic fairness. Below is a breakdown of these issues. Erosion of public trust. That's a obvious one. Second one, market distortion and unfair advantage. Insider trading by politicians distort market efficiency. If Pelosi or other trade on confidential legislative or regulatory insight, they gain an unfair edge over retail investors. They can lead to mispriced securities as trades based on non-public information do not reflect market fundamentals, harming investors who rely on publicly available data. For instance, Paul Pelosi's consistent out outperformance, reportedly achieving a 54% portfolio return in 2024, raises suspicion of exploiting insider knowledge, which disadvantages ordinary investors. But they said Nancy Pelosi was like in the mid 70s, as what Caroline Levitt said. Conflict of interest in policy making. Of course, moral and ethical concerns. Insider trading by politicians violates the principles of equal opportunity in markets. Pelosi, as high-ranking officials, is expected to uphold ethical standards, yet allegations of exploiting her position for financial gain erode her credibility. Um, Specific to Nancy Pelosi, the focus on Nancy Pelosi stems from her wealth, estimated I think combined at about $400 to $500 million, her husband's active trading, and her role as a legislative leader with access to sensitive information. High-profile trades like those in tech giants Microsoft, Apple, and NVIDIA coincide suspiciously with congressional activities such as antitrust hearings or defense contracts. While Pelosi denies involvement and claims compliance with disclosure rules, the lack of transparency and enforcement fuels accusations. Her support for the Honest Act to ban congressional trading is seen by critics as a belated response to public pressure rather than genuine reform. Of course, like the lady mentioned earlier, she's at the end of her career, so she don't care, and she's probably not going to go to prison, unfortunately. Frustration of retail investors with stock market malfeasance. Retail investors, often disadvantaged in the stock market, express significant frustration with practices like illegal naked shorting and the perceived inaction of the SEC, a government agency tasked with market oversight. Below is an explanation of these issues. Illegal naked shorting. And my point in saying this is you have the Securities Exchange Commission that doesn't do anything. They don't do anything about this. Illegal naked shorting, which is done by hedge funds. Definition and impact. Naked shorting involves selling shares without borrowing or owning them, creating phantom shares that artificially inflate supply and depress stock prices. This practice, illegal under SEC regulation, harms retail investors by manipulating prices of stocks they hold, eroding their investments. For example, meme stocks like GameStop, they say meme stocks like GameStop and AMC in 2021 were allegedly targeted by naked shorting, causing significant losses for retail investors betting on price increases. They say allegedly, we as retail investors know better. So we're frustrated. But conclusion, allegations of insider trading against Nancy Pelosi highlight systemic issues where politicians exploit their positions, eroding trust and fairness in markets. Retail investors already frustrated by practices like illegal naked shorting and the SEC's inadequate enforcement see these indictments as part of a broader pattern of malfeasance favoring elites. The combination of regulatory loopholes, limited accountability, and perceived conflicts of interest fuels a growing divide between retail investors and the financial political establishment with calls for reform like banning congressional trading and strengthening SEC oversight gaining traction. We're done. We are done. We're on the front lines, man. We're retail investors. We are on the front lines. We study and see this every single day, and we call it out. Nancy Pelosi, man, I agree with President Trump. I agree with President Trump when he says that she needs to be investigated.